And I introduce you also my team member, Margarita Krisaki, who is our communication and project officer. We both animate these workshop series. For Nereus, the time of the pandemic was very, very difficult because we are about networking, building contacts, and organizing events. And sometimes you, out of a difficult situation, you make something positive. And we experimented with digital formats and found out that they are quite effective to stay in touch with our members. So that led us to develop a workshop series for you. And we want to establish this as a regular format. We will have webinars like every 6 weeks, sometimes maybe even earlier. We set up a series for the university community, where we bring different universities to the floor to discuss with the whole stakeholders that are present in the region. It's not only looking at one group, but really linking the different stakeholder groups, triple helix structure, to really more and more regions understand themselves as ecosystems and to make the different actors cooperate, network together. And this is where we see also the added value of Nereus. This series today is part of the series we developed for the cluster SME community, the civil side community, civil or let's say public and private sector community. And we want to feature, bring into the floor our clusters, their SME community, link them well with the stakeholder communities in the region, having discussions with public administrations, having discussions with relevant users. And one important feature of this sessions are we want to show EU programs, EU opportunities, ESA programs, and bring them in a regional context. Now, this we defined certain topics. Today we will start off with the series in the context of space in the safety and security context. The European Commission 1 year ago, in February 2021, published an action plan to better EU action plan to better set up synergies between civil defense and cyber. And we want to better understand what is this new approach, because in the past it was always highlighted Copernicus and Galileo are civil programs. And with different discussions I had with ESA and the Commission, they are definitely in the first place civil programs, but the new approach is now to set synergies between civil and defense, between space and cyber and defense, and to bring more into the focus cross-fertilization, to look how can innovations that are used, that are developed in the civil sector, how can they maybe used and exploited for safety and security purposes, but also to see how innovations that have been developed in the defense or in the safety security sector can be exploited or applied in civil contexts. Today we kick off with a new instrument of the European Commission in the defense sector, in which space features also is one strand. We are very glad to welcome a speaker from the European Commission, Guillaume Gauthier. Thank you very much that you have accepted our invitation, and you will feature and present the new instrument. Guillaume works for the European Commission, DG DEFIS, and please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. And once again, apologize for being late, but the schedule is very tight for me today. So as you said, I'm from the Commission, and I will take you through a couple of slides regarding the European Defence Fund, which is the main instrument that the Commission is currently managing to fund defense collaborative R&D. So as a first slide, I will not dwell too much on it. I hope I can pass the slide. It takes some time. I don't know why. Sorry. There is a delay between my. So I will skip the first slide. You have the slides already, I guess, because they were circulated a couple of days ago. I just want to say that the EDF is not there by chance. It was a long run to get there, and it's not the end of the run, because we are now concentrated on R&D, but there are still ongoing discussion about what's going next in terms of joint procurement, for example, in the sector of R&D. You may have heard about this in the context of the war in Ukraine. This slide that you see is just to highlight a bit the main features of the program, the European Defence Fund, which is there to support collaborative cross-border cooperation of R&D, including disruptive technologies. It's about competitiveness and innovation capacity of the European defense technological and industrial base. It's there also to encourage the participation of SMEs and other actors which are not usually present in the field of defense. It's there to enable a reduction of the fragmentation of the defense capabilities in Europe and of the industrial landscape. It's there to support and foster the building of partnerships between member states, between industrial actors from all member states. The idea is also to make the best use of the spending and the taxpayer money with maximizing the outcome of the fund. It's there also to close technological gaps, to strengthen our also other security and defense initiatives, and to leading to more resilience and strategic autonomy in Europe. So what you see on the right side is a bit this research capability windows, with the EDF focusing on what is in circled in orange, research and development, with 8 billion euros over 21-27, 1/3 for research, 2/3 for development, and the acquisition will come further with new instruments. So it's an instrument which is taking mainly the form of grants, and which is open to EU member states and Norway, and which is also based on security based conditions. So I will not dwell too much on this slide. Just keywords here I highlighted. We are focusing on the needs of the member state. They are in the driving scene. They are the sole, I would say, users and procurers of these defense capabilities. We want to ensure continuity. It's not one shot. We are not funding one action and then we just forget it. We are trying to give some perspective to what we do. We want to be inclusive in terms of member states and size of companies. We support innovation with several initiatives inside the European Defence Fund, and with a budget dedicated to disruptive technologies. We want to be selective and not, try to do everything. We cannot do everything, even though the budget is significant. So we try to concentrate on what may have a big impact. And we are doing that in cooperation with taking into account other initiatives. This is typically what I will develop in the next slide. We consider that the EDF is an enabler in a European larger ecosystem. So EDF is an enabler because it's bringing money, and this is an important aspect. Whereas you have some other initiatives, for example, the permanent structure cooperation, or the capacity development plan, which is more, I would say, oriented into member states defining some priorities or talking together about their needs. But when it comes to financing concrete actions, the EDF enters into the game and is able to make all these initiatives materialize concretely. We're also taking, of course, into consideration the plans of the member states, because they will have to co-finance to some extent the actions that we are promoting. The next slide. So this next slide, just to recall some basics about the European Defence Fund. It's working on a yearly cycle with very typical activities, like defining the content of the work program that will explain which are the topics that we want to address in the coming year. Then we will publish the calls for proposals. We will leave some time for the applicants to submit their proposals, and after that we would of course run the evaluation of the proposals and select the projects for award, and this and then enter into the grant agreement preparation, and with this ending with the signature of the grant agreement, and then the project starts. So altogether, it's more or less a cycle that lasts 18 months so far, from the publication of the calls to the start of the project. So it's 18 months, but the cycle is yearly. And so the program committee is having a powerful role in this program, because it's under the program committee of the EDF is composed of representatives of the member states, mainly Ministry of Defense, and they have to give their positive opinion on the work program on the one side, but also on the results of the evaluation on the other side. So the next slide is just to mention that we structure all our communication on the European Defence Fund around what we have called categories of actions, which are paving the landscape of industrial defense capabilities. So every year we are publishing calls within these various categories of actions, one being space. So we have 15 thematic categories of actions, but we also have 2 categories which I put on which are horizontal, which are on the bottom of the slide, which are about disruptive technologies and innovative defense technologies, where you can find more open calls, if I may say, in the sense that we are not very prescriptive about what we are looking for, but contrary to the other categories of action. Let me go to the next slide if it moves. So this is just an overview of what happened in 21. We had calls for proposals with a total budget of over 1 billion. The results were announced in July, and as you may have seen already, regarding the space category of action, there were 2 topics and so one call with 2 topics, and so this led to the selection of 2 projects. One is NavGuard for the advanced Galileo PRS resilience for EU defense, and another one on the European protected waveform. So I put there the consortium, the member of the consortium. So these projects have been selected and are currently under grant agreement preparation, and the project are likely to start early next year. Just to mention that as part of these horizontal categories of action open call, you have also some other projects which are dealing with space, and I listed them at the bottom of the slide. So each of these projects, you can find the fact sheet on our website. You have all the useful links at the end of the presentation. So what's happening right now is that we have these calls for we have, following the adoption of the 22 work program, we published calls for proposal this year. They are closing next week by the 24th of November, so it's very soon. We have 3 topics addressing space this year for a total budget of 150 million euros, and one being research, two being development. You have the information here, and you can find everything about these topics on of course the funding and tender portal. So this is a bit of an insight of what it is about. These 3 topics. One is about a responsive space system, how to launch small satellites very responsively with a short time frame, short notice. So the two development ones are about a constellation of near real-time for near real-time tactical use, made of multi-sensor. It's a multi-sensor constellation for Earth observation, and the other one is about space-based missile early warning. Sorry, I'm going fast because I understand that we are under time constraint. So I mentioned it in the beginning, we are not doing one shot. We are also looking at more longer term perspective. And so we have, for the first time this year, published what we call the multi-annual perspective, EDF Multiannual perspective, which aims at facilitating the work of the member states in the industry in terms of coordination and preparation. It gives an overview of what are the main expected outcomes of the European Defence Fund by I would say the end of by 27. So these are developed by category of action. It also provides some indicative targets in terms of EDF financial contribution in order to meet these expected outcomes. So this is a document that we expect to update on a yearly basis as well. I highlighted here what you have inside for space. So you have the idea of going up to some prototypes for several capabilities, or even up to procurement, meaning that we have passed even more than the prototyping, testing, qualification, etc. So altogether, the financial ambition is to be more than 10% of the EDF global envelope. So it means around 800 million euros over 21-27, which is about 110 million per year in average. The next slide is a very quick insight of what are the eligibility conditions to participate to the EDF. So it's the basics, of course, in a nutshell. So the consortium need to be composed of at least 3 entities from 3 different member states, and Norway is also considered as a potential like a member state, I would say. The recipients and the main subcontractors, as well as all the infrastructure, facilities, assets, and resources used for the actions, need to be located in the EU or in Norway. We allow entities established in third countries to be associated to the project, but they will not receive funding. It's important also that all recipients and main subcontractors are not subject to control by a third country entity, and this is one of the specific features, I would say, of the EDF compared to other EU programs. There is a system of derogation which is possible, but which requires that some guarantees approved by the member state where the entity is located is transmitted to the Commission. There should also be no restriction nor control by third country or third country entities on the results of the action. And of course, it should comply with international law and with also high ethics standards. On top of that, and specifically for development actions, which are, as I've said, we have development, research and development actions. For development action, you have additional criteria to meet, which are that you need to prove that there is a co-financing because the funding rate of the Commission is not necessarily up to 100%, so there is a need for co-financing. The proof of this co-financing needs to be there. There should be also demonstration that the actions will be based on harmonized defense capability requirements when it's an action about design, and this needs to be agreed by at least 2 member states of Norway. And when it's above design, meaning prototyping and plus activities, you also need to show an intention to procure and common technical specification agreed by at least 2 member states. So that's in a nutshell what are the eligibility conditions. And my last slide is just about the funding rate. As I said, they are not 100% automatically. For research, it is 100%. So it's like it's an easy scheme, I would say. But for development actions, we are trying to encourage some kind of a leverage effect. So that's why we are not by default funding up to 100%. But we have included a bonus systems to encourage the participation of SMEs and mid-cap mainly. And this can help to reach higher funding rates, which in some cases can be 100%, but in other cases are not 100%. And so this bonus system is explained in the next slide, how this is calculated. As I said, it's mainly linked to the participation of SMEs and mid-cap, but also when there are connection with the PESCO project. That's almost it. You can find all the useful information in the links provided in these slides, and I'm now open for your questions. I can't hear you. I think you are muted.
Thank you, Guillaume. We very appreciated your intervention, and maybe also we really promoted also outside our membership. We had over 66 registration. Margarita confirmed that more than 42 people are connected, tendency increasing. And I see we have a first question from Matteo Kopeski. On in the innovation spectrum, what does the EDF seek to achieve? Incremental improvement, or does it look for something bigger, like next generation combat systems?
Well, I would say it's all that together, actually. I mean, innovation is a key element of defense R&D, as you know. We are trying to dedicate some actions to really innovative, incremental improvement, as you say. Typically, we have challenges. For the first time this year, we are going to implement a challenge for detection and of improvised explosive device. And the idea with the challenge is really to measure the improvement made step after step, and to put everybody to measure everybody with the same instruments. So that's allows to move thoroughly to more capable solutions. But it's also about, as you said, dealing with the biggest chunk, I would say, of the challenges for the European defense in terms also of next generation combat systems. Mm-hmm. So we have dedicated actions, but we also promote innovation everywhere.
Thank you. Any more question? You have to write it in the chat because you are more than 42, 43 participants. I can't see you all, so this hand raising does not work. You need to let me know in the chat. No? Okay, thank you very much, Guillaume. We stay in touch. And if you allow, I think Margarita circulated already the slides, but if you allow, we would also publish them on our website.
Sure, no problem at all. Many thanks to all. It was my pleasure.
Thank you, Guillaume. Thank you, Guillaume. Then we move on to our next speaker. SME entrepreneurs are the protagonists in many of our regions. And in this kind of webinar series, please, Guillaume, could you also stop sharing because we need the place for the next speaker. In this workshop series, we want also to bring concrete entrepreneurial experiences to the floor. We want to know from the SME what is the reality on the market. And we are extremely honored and glad to welcome today Edoardo Camilli. Edoardo is a professional from Italy. We are extremely proud because Edoardo is also a former Nereus trainee, and we have kept all those ages in contact. Edoardo has started his own company in the safety and security domain. And Edoardo, please, the floor is yours. We are very much looking forward to hear more about your entrepreneurial experience.
Thank you very much, Roya. Thank you, first of all, for your invitation, and good morning, everyone. Let me maybe just share my screen so to guide you through a bit about myself and what we do at Hosint, and also what is the connection with space. Just a few words about the company. We are a risk intelligence solution provider based in Brussels, Belgium. I will go more into the details about what we do as a company, but just to introduce myself, as Roya said, I'm Italian, but I've been living in Belgium now for more than 12 years. My background is in international security and intelligence. But despite this, I started my career in Brussels with Roya and Nereus. It seems like a long time ago, but thinking about it, it seems like yesterday. And it was a really good experience to start to get acquainted with the space technology, although this was not really my focus, mostly because at the time, Nereus and also, I would say from the European Commission point of view, the use was mostly civilian, while my interest obviously was more on the security side of things. But it was a very good experience for me to understand how this technology work, and it came out basically useful a few years later for some other project that I will talk about. After Nereus, I continued my career in a private intelligence firm still in Brussels, and my job there was mostly to collect information from open sources on safety and security incidents occurring pretty much anywhere across the globe, and the goal was to notify clients in a near real time when there were threats to their physical security in terms of terrorism, conflict, civil unrest, all these sort of type of a physical security threats that could have an impact on also the business continuity of mostly private companies. I loved actually the work that I was doing at the time, but it was extremely manual. So this means that every analyst had to go through media and social media looking for relevant information, scraping the web, and then writing short operational alert. And this was a time in which, let's say, the buzzword in Brussels started to be big data, artificial intelligence, although I knew nothing about it because with a background in political science, obviously AI is not really something that we studied at university. But I started basically to interest myself in this technology, and I started to understand how I could combine AI with the human intelligence for providing a better service to clients. So back in 2014, I decided to quit my previous job as a consultant and to create Hosint Horizon Intelligence alongside two associates, one from France, Blaise Ortiz, which should also be in the call, and Mathieu Baudou from Belgium. So 3 Europeans found themselves in Brussels. So it sounds really like the typical Brussels story. And our goal, once again, was to really try to find a way to combine the human intelligence with artificial intelligence in order to provide as much as operational alerts as possible by combining the volume and speed of AI with the quality and accuracy of the human brain. So we built this company where we expanded basically our domain. So not only focusing on the security side of things, such as crime, terrorism, and conflict, but we also started to expand it to safety issues such as natural disasters, obviously epidemic, and the COVID-19, of course, was a tremendous period for us because of the volume of information that we had to start to process. But it's also a good way to understand how AI can really support people and analysts in identifying this sort of information. Now, the platform basically, it looks something like this, and there are several use cases. One of the use cases, of course, monitoring conflict zones, such as Ukraine at the moment. So the system is currently crawling information from Ukrainian, Russian media, social media, such as Telegram and Twitter. And we are able basically to use natural language processing to geotag the event on a map and then corroborate it with our team of analysts. But there are, of course, other, let's say, possible use cases, and this starts to create, let's say, connection also with space, is using the same type of technology for other defense purposes. That could be, for instance, the monitoring of air surveillance or maritime surveillance. Just to explain a bit of the process, how the system works, AI is basically crawling open sources such as international news media, local media, and social media. He pre-processes this information by filtering the information that are considered as relevant. so we use machine learning. We use also automated translation to automatically translate from a local language into English, so to make information available in languages that might not necessarily be understandable by everyone. And then the system sends an early warning alert to two directions simultaneously. One direction is the platform, the one that you saw earlier as a screenshot. So an analyst can be notified as quickly as possible when there is an information potentially interesting for their security operations. But at the same time, the same type of information arrive to our 24/7 team of analysts that can verify the information and avoid all the disinformation that we got used to, let's say, mostly in the past few years. And what is basically our connection with space? It's a growing and starting connection. That means at the moment, of course, we mostly use satellite imagery from providers in order to geotag and analyze the situations on the ground. But our first approach was actually in 2016 when we participated to a feasibility study sponsored by the European Space Agency. And the goal was for us to understand how we could combine open sources with satellite imagery, mostly coming from Copernicus, the emergency management service, to see if we could combine the two type of sources of information for creating a better picture of what is happening on the ground by comparing the satellite imagery with the social media report, for instance, coming from the ground when there is, I don't know, a natural disaster or a crisis. What we identified at the time is that the information available, at least at the time, via Copernicus was not in real time enough for us to provide operational and tactical support to, say, crisis management units. And I was honestly very glad to hear from the Commissioner, Guillaume, that there are projects for creating a constellation of satellites for near real-time imagery. And way more recently, I mean, this is still something that we are currently working on. We are about to participate to finalize a project proposal for the European Defence Fund for basically alongside with the consortium. We were invited by a consortium to participate to for the detection of anomalies and false data injection into the maritime surveillance. So the idea is to see if we can combine, for instance, data such as SAIS and SDSB with open source intelligence to see if we can have a match between what is being reported by satellite data, not only imagery, of course, but since these data sometimes are also open, they also, let's say, vulnerable to disinformation from, let's say, parties that, of course, want to provide false information into the satellite system. And what we're trying to do is, of course, try to see if we can combine them with open sources. So in a nutshell, basically, this is my my experience. We are starting, let's say, our adventure into the space. And I'm pretty sure that it's going to be challenging, but at the same time, very, very interesting. So if there are any questions, of course, the floor is open.
Thank you very much, Eduardo, for this interesting and really dynamic presentation. There is time for some questions. Please let me know in the chat. Eduardo, there are not at the moment, but maybe later. So I will move on to our next speaker. But Eduardo, it was also very, very interesting having a concrete entrepreneurial experience after having listened to the presentation of Guillaume, because it gives somehow life to the program. It sees what can you do, what kind of initiatives can you develop in the frame of this program. So thank you very much. Now I move on to our next speakers. Nereus is a network of regions. Our main partners are regions across Europe. We have 23 regions, and regions differ also structurally. Like you have coastal regions with a very strong maritime focus. You have mountainous region. You have regions that are cities like Madrid, like Bremen, who have a very strong focus also on urban questions. And almost all our regions have clusters or aerospace districts. And we work together with them. We try also to link them well with public users to have also dialogue between the two of them. And we try also to learn what are latest trends in the business domain, what are needs of our SMEs. That's very, very important for the political dialogue and preparing our politicians when they talk with representatives of European institutions and ESA. So we also seek the exchange with clusters and aerospace districts, which are key players for regional ecosystems for the territory. I'm myself today in one of our member regions, Brittany, and I'm extremely happy to welcome the cluster representatives from the regional cluster here in Brittany. Frédéric Rindeau. Frédéric is a defense advisor for Paul Mayer, the cluster here in Brittany region. Please, Frédéric, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Roya. Thank you for your kind invitation and good morning to everybody. I share my screen. No, it's not the good sharing, sorry. Where is my presentation here? Okay. So do you see my screen?
Yes.
In
yes.
full page?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay, so I will start by a short overview of what we are as a cluster of innovation dedicated to maritime economy. So it could be obvious, but we are working towards developing innovations as part of innovative collaborative project with the aim of economic development, and trying to stimulate cooperation, synergy between industry, mainly SMEs, but not also a large enterprise, and research center. In link with regional territory actors. So it's roughly classical. So we have two innovation cluster in France dedicated to the maritime economy. One's located at Brest in Brittany, and the second one located at Toulon, where are twin cluster with the same process, and we share our members on the whole territory of France. So we have both cluster 1,000 members. So this is the description of our cooperation with the Paul Mayer Méditerranée. With I remember same process, same strategic aims. And so the maritime economy is divided in six fields, with a main part on defense, maritime safety and security. And in this regard, we have a convention with the Ministry of Armed Forces. We are mandated by this ministry to pick up open innovation for the Ministry of Defense, and the second mission is to support. In terms of business development, mainly SMEs in link with defense matter. These six fields are crossed by waves of improvement in terms of ecological transition and digital transformation. And within digital transformation and within defense, maritime safety and security matters, we have a very important place dedicated to space activity. And in this slide, you can see the main application of space for maritime. The first one is the positioning, the navigation related to the risk of spoofing and jamming, and it is a very important point of concern now, particularly in the growing context of e-navigation and autonomous navigation. The second philo sector of application relates to secure and reliable communication. It's obvious. And the third one relates to observation and monitoring. It's very important. For example, the One Ocean Summit decided to create a digital twin for the ocean, for example. And the last sector of application is cybersecurity. Cybersecurity for autonomous data, which is growing and fleet center. So now, what about we do in favor of our SMEs interested with defense fund? And I will present our experience of our support to SMEs. It's a very interesting opportunity for SMEs. In terms of budget, Guillaume presented this. Despite an heavy burden of work for SMEs, but there is a very important interest in terms of a rate of subvention. The visibility at the European scale is very important, and the opportunity to set up some partnerships. As Guillaume said, there are two ways the thematic calls, and in particular the call related to space. But it is SMEs must set up a partnership with a large enterprise, and the second way is the open call, which is dedicated to SMEs. So we are working very closely with the Ministry of French Army, of the Armed Forces, sorry, and very soon in the year calendar. In terms of matching meetings with large enterprise for thematic call, in terms of support of SMEs, the DGA, the Direction Générale pour l'Armement, select some projects and offer some subvention for advisor. And as I said, the process start at the beginning of the year. Related to our return of experience, what are the challenge and our expectation for the benefit of our SMEs members? The main difficulty is to organize an European consortium. There is a need to develop mutual knowledges and partnerships between SMEs belonging to different countries. And so one way could be to organize at the European scales and through NERUS, for example, matching meeting. And the second way is to avoid sort of bad competition and to promote synergy on common technological challenge. We see when we discuss with our regional twin cluster the same technological challenge, and we guess there is a way of improvement to be stronger together. And this is a reason why we believe we could improve networking and co-working. So my ideas for thematics or items in terms of defense, it is dedicated mainly for the open call. We see some wave of improvements in terms of maritime monitoring and survey due to growing illegal activities or due or a growing need for European sovereignty. And the second way is more military. It relates to higher intensity naval warfare, and which includes a need for a better sharing of information and data. And I guess that concludes my presentation. I am open to answer your question.
Thank you very much, Frédéric. To everyone, please let me know if you have questions in the chat. I have, while you can still think, I have a question to Frédéric. Frédéric, you represent a maritime cluster and you link in Brittany very much safety and security. You are also very strong in the cybersecurity domain. What kind of partners are you looking for on the Nereus platform?
Sorry, could you repeat the last part of your question?
What kind of partners are you looking for on the Nereus platform? Who on our platform could be interesting for you?
Okay. We are looking for other SMEs which shares the same technological challenge and which will be interested to collaborate for the European Defence Fund and to join a consortium.
I see. Okay. Now I see some questions in the chat. I have one that is addressed to Eduardo from Jürgen Langenwalter. Eduardo, how do you manage real-time monitoring with Earth observation imagery? Delivery time is mostly GT 6 hours.
Oh, that's indeed a very good question. It depends, of course, on the scenarios and cases that we are describing. In this very project, which is still, let's say, in the phase of basically writing and submitting, so will be a feasibility study to see also what technologies are available for having faster data, mostly coming, I would say, from private companies and private SMEs providing satellite imagery. But I would say that probably the satellite imagery will come in specific situation when we, for instance, want to corroborate the reports about the drone strikes or air strikes. So we can wait maybe a few more hours, while the more real time will coming from other type of signals, not necessarily imagery.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Eduardo. Any other questions to our speakers? You still have a chance. No? Okay. Margarita shared with you in the chat information on our next webinars to which you are cordially invited. These webinar sessions are for the moment open to everyone. We want to see also who else is out there who is maybe not amongst our partners, and to get an idea. At one time, because we are a membership organization, these webinars might be restricted to members, but for the moment they are open. We will have a next webinar on 2nd December, and it will be on the Open Horizon Europe call, the pre-commercial procurement action. We have a speaker from OISPA who will introduce us into the call and give some background information. Then tourism and space is another important topic on our platform. Tourism is an important factor in many regional economies of our network partners. And so we set up together with the European Space Agency, and we will expand to other partners, a series on tourism, looking how can space-based services, space-based data contribute for more sustainable tourism solutions. We will have on the 6th of December a kick-off session, and we are going to introduce an open call by ESA to develop in this domain applications. And we'll be very glad to welcome you. We will follow up on this with a second session where we bring from Basilicata region public users to the floor that explain what kind of needs do they have in the tourism domain. So then having interactions with companies to see what kind of solutions are already available. The next session in the safety and security domain will be on the 30th of January next year. And we are going to introduce you to the European Network of Defense-related regions. We will be very glad to have speakers from the Commission, but also from the network itself. Both networks, Nereus and the ENRD network, are complementary. We have members like Wallonia, like Baden-Württemberg, like Nouvelle-Aquitaine, who are members of both networks, and we are very curious to hear their view and their vision on what are synergies between space and defense. We will be very glad to welcome you on those ones. Maybe there are also amongst our participants people that are interested in university targeted action. Margarita, maybe you can say briefly something on the workshop series targeted at university.
Thank you, Roya. Very shortly from my side, we are very happy to launch our third webinar on education and training in the space sector. The main goal is really to find opportunities for our members in the network on funding opportunities for partnerships, for collaboration within and outside the network. It's really targeted to universities, to education training stakeholders, research centers, and it will be the next one. It's planned for the 7th of December, 10 to 11. We will have the University of Padova that will join, also the University of Bologna. But we have a surprise speaker as well from coming from Ghana, and he would explain how he visualizes education opportunities between Ghana and Europe. So we are looking forward to see you all in these extremely interesting webinars. And you can find the links on our website, also in the chat. Thank you very much.
Thank you to all participants for joining us this morning. We're looking forward to keep in touch with you. Should you have any topics that are of interest where you propose to organize a webinar or an information session, please send them to us, send them to the Nereus Secretariat by email. We will look at them. And if we have cluster aerospace districts in our network who would like to take the floor, present themselves, say something about their interests and capabilities, We will be also very glad to integrate you in one of our next sessions. With this, I wish you all a very good day, and we look forward to welcome you on the next occasion. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.